Coming up, a welcome surprise. The FAA has done something that'll save you money.
An off-road jet, and returning to a time when everybody knew the Russians were the bad guys.
And the $100 six-pack. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
Celebrate 20 years with Sonex Aircraft by building and flying your dream. Quick handling, fun, and capable kit aircraft models to suit your flying passions. Get the best performance per dollar with Sonex Aircraft.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haynes and Melissa Rudinger.
So how does saving $114 million sound to you? This is real money back in your pocket if you're an instrument-rated pilot now or working on your commercial certificate.
It's a new final rule, and it's just out from the FAA. And it's been a long time coming. AOPA has been working on this for 2 years, and the result? Lower flight training costs and cheaper ways to maintain instrument proficiency.
4 big changes. This has been a long time coming. AOPA submitted some pretty lengthy comments back in 2016. We've had a number of inquiries about this. We've been very supportive, trying to urge the FAA to get this one done.
And what are those 4 changes? First, an instrument-rated pilot can now use a simulator, technically an aviation training device, to maintain instrument currency. Your time in the training device will give you 6 months of currency rather than the 2 as it is now. Second change, you can do it solo. You don't have to have a flight instructor monitoring your work in the ATD.
As all instrument-rated pilots know, they have to do certain things every 6 months to maintain it. Otherwise, eventually they'll have to do an IPC, an instrument proficiency check. And this will basically alleviate a lot of the cost, many of the costs, by allowing you to use an aviation training device for fulfilling some of those requirements versus an actual aircraft.
Those changes will take effect in November. The FAA will publish guidance on which aviation training device can be used for instrument currency.
And the third change involves training for a commercial certificate. Used to need 10 hours of flight in a complex aircraft. That's an aircraft with retractable gear and a controllable pitch propeller for the commercial certificate. And now you can do the training in a technically advanced aircraft. That's an airplane with advanced avionics, including an electronic primary flight display, a multifunction display, and a 2-axis autopilot. We've heard from students that it's become a lot harder to find retractable gear aircraft at flight schools, so this is a big change for them. FAA thinks it will save students close to $3 million over 5 years. So this is significant from a cost-saving standpoint and really will help pilots.
It is, and it shows we've pivoted a little bit in government affairs and trying to do more proactive things. We're always fighting things like privatization and user fees, but we've done quite a few things in the past 5 years like this to help reduce costs, hopefully.
Yeah, it's been a big emphasis.
We'll keep doing it, too. And finally, the fourth change. Hours spent flying as a sport pilot can now be credited towards higher certificates and ratings. That's expected to save pilots an estimated $14 million over the next 5 years. It took some time, but the FAA got it right. But one thing to keep in mind.
The various changes will be in effect at different times. So we'll be having something up on our website. Feel free to check that out to make sure that you're having the correct date on when all this stuff goes into effect, because it will vary depending upon the change.
So the changes are staggered, so that it's important to check and make sure you're within the window of when they start. But I'm really excited about this one.
Yeah, no, that's good news all around. And Sport Pilot too, that latest piece, really helpful that you can take advantage of the training you've already had, and it actually counts for something if you decide to move up to a private pilot certificate.
Imagine that, common sense.
Yeah, what a great idea. But even with good news out of Washington, hey, we have to deliver a dose of the bad. And the bad news, well, it's back again. The White House has put out its plan to reform and reorganize the executive branch. Guess what? Air traffic control privatization continues to be the vampire idea that will not stay in its coffin. They're calling it a, quote, mission adjustment for the Department of Transportation, and they sort of hide it with, of all things, the St. Lawrence Seaway, but there it is. FAA's air traffic control services could be spun off from the government so that it could better assess fees on the users. But AOPA President Mark Baker thinks they're trying to fix what isn't broken and ignoring what really needs to be done to solve airline delays.
So let's go work on the things that we all agree can be fixed, more concrete potentially for the Northeast Corridor. Let's work on things like scheduling, where those things arrive and cause us real congestion. Those are things that we can solve together through all the industry coming together and talking about it, not taking it over and giving it to one special interest group. We've seen what happens in the other ATCs in the 60 countries around the rest of the world. It hasn't been good for general aviation and business aviation. None of them have the robustness of our system.
Congress has continued to reject air traffic control privatization. In a hearing this week, Representative Steve Russell, a former Army officer, said that pulling ATC out of the FAA could pose a security threat to the United States.
By divorcing ATC functions from the government, and thus Department of Defense, each shared interest would be subjected to a yet unknown established process of coordination, which could leave our nation vulnerable to cybersecurity and physical attack. It would also create a potential multi-billion-dollar unfunded liability for Department of Defense to update its own systems in coordination with these new processes.
And despite what Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao and some of the airline leaders are telling the public, the U.S. air traffic control system is the most advanced in the world with a satellite-based navigation and surveillance system. If only the airlines were equipped to use it. So it will not go away.
No, and I was literally at a next-gen advisory meeting yesterday where we were talking about how do we operate in a mixed equipage environment, because not everybody's equipped, and it's going to be a long time before the airlines are fully equipped to take advantage of ADS-B, for example.
Right. So lots of challenges out there. We don't need to mix things up further with changing the air traffic system and charging user fees.
Exactly. Let's put this in the technologically advanced category with backward compatibility. Pilatus has just flown its brand new PC-24 jet off an unpaved runway. The company is working on a series of post-certification tests to get the aircraft approved for rough field operations. The jet was designed from the beginning for off-road operations on short strips, as short as 2,800 feet. Now, this was once the world's fastest business jet. Now it's just another airframe in the growing list of discontinued Cessna aircraft. Cessna confirmed that its suspended production of the Citation 10. The handwriting was on the wall. They sold only 4 of the 528-knot Speedsters last year. The Longitude will likely take the 10's place in the lineup. The Longitude isn't as fast, 476 knots, but it has a wider cabin and longer range.
Hey, speaking of fast, Boeing just debuted its concept for a hypersonic passenger aircraft. The concept aircraft would be larger than a long-range business jet, but smaller than a 737. It'd fly at, get this, Mach 5 at a cruise altitude of up to 95,000 feet. Mach 5 gets you across the Atlantic in about 2 hours. So hey, that commute to London might be practical after all. But if you want to get there even faster, you might consider going suborbital. The House Aviation Subcommittee this week considered the impact of commercial space operations on the rest of the national airspace system. One problem, a space launch can shut down a large chunk of airspace for hours, yet the rocket is only in the airspace for 60 seconds.
So what we would like to see is essentially some IT tools that can better model the debris dispersion that could occur if you were to have a bad day with the vehicle, so that we could see when it moves through it quickly and successfully, we can open the airspace dynamically, instead of having phone calls and big boxes blocking space.
The FAA is currently reviewing its regulations for commercial space launches, and proposed new rules are expected by February of 2019. Something you've been working on a long time.
We have, and I think 2 weeks ago I was down in Florida for, there's this rule-making group that I'm a part of that is developing the recommendations for what's going to be proposed in February. So it's pretty exciting to be a part of this kind of historic new launch of commercial space.
Yeah, sounds very interesting.
We're going to step back in time now to a time when the Cold War raged and the city of Berlin was cut off from the rest of the West. The Soviets wanted to starve Berlin's people into submission, but a daring group of aviators would not allow that to happen. 70 years ago this week, the Berlin Airlift began. Josh Cochran has the story of a group of modern aviators and volunteers who want to make sure we never forget.
Many consider it to be one of the greatest humanitarian events in history. During the Berlin Airlift, over 2 million people depended on food and supplies delivered by airplanes flown by the U.S. and other Western Allied countries. The airlift allowed the Western Allies to hold Berlin, keeping it from Soviet control. Now, 70 years later, the Berlin Airlift Historical Foundation is telling the story of the airlift with their C-54, the military version of a DC-4.
Well, our mission is to preserve the history of the Great Berlin Airlift that took place in 1948 and 1949. It was such a great story. First time in history an airlift of this magnitude had been tried. But the goal was Berlin blockaded by the Russians, how to sustain 2.5 million people without a shooting conflict.
This C-54 is a flying museum with pictures and artifacts about the airlift.
Well, ever since a small boy, I just fell in love with the Douglas C-54 transport, and as I got older and realized what it had done in this humanitarian effort, just always intrigued me. And I noticed that not many people were aware of the story. So as time went on, I thought how neat it would be to have an educational exhibit inside of a flyable C-54. And that's how this all began.
While the C-47 or DC-3 started the airlift, larger airplanes like the C-54 carried much of the cargo.
So the call went out through the military all around the world to bring in Douglas C-54s that were now being assigned for the Berlin airlift. It could carry 20,000 pounds.
The Berlin Airlift Historical Foundation wants to continue to teach important history using airplanes. The foundation is adding the only airworthy C-97 to the fleet. The C-97 is the cargo version of the B-29.
We would like to continue our story of history by going into the Cold War era. So the C-97 is perfect for that. It was in operation that whole time, beginning with the airlift and ending in 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down. So we're going to install not only where the airlift left off, but we've got Korea, we've got Vietnam, we've got the entire Cold War spectrum.
The men and women who keep these old airplanes flying are passionate about telling the story of the airlift so the public can remember the lessons learned in Berlin so many years ago.
We're fighting the Germans. Next thing, we're trying to save them. So it's a perfect example how people coming together can accomplish great things.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
It's great to see history come to life and tell the story in a real tangible way.
Right, and to see aviation, airplanes used to help the people of Berlin at that time. Pretty amazing stuff. Coming up after the break, stemming the tide to grow general aviation.
And the $100 six-pack. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
You always knew it was your perfect airplane. Now it can have the perfect panel. Garmin G500 TXI and Garmin G600 TXI, the next generation of flight displays.
Welcome back. The pilot shortage is already starting to affect the industry. That's why AOPA has the You Can Fly program to help grow the pilot population. One of the parts of You Can Fly is the high school initiative. This week, AOPA welcomed a group of high school teachers from across the nation so they can learn how to bring aviation to the classroom. AOPA's senior features editor Julie Walker has the story.
They launched homemade balloons, built gliders, and set off rockets. More than 30 teachers from high schools across the country are here in Frederick, Maryland at the You Can Fly Academy. For 3 days, these instructors are learning and practicing the new AOPA high school curriculum designed to expose students to aviation.
There's no other curriculum like it in the country in that it's entirely focused on aviation and aerospace, and so it includes everything a teacher needs to teach: lesson plans, assessments, activities. So whether we have an educator teaching aviation for the first time or we have a certified flight instructor teaching for the first time, we have resources for both of those people.
Jonas DeLon is a teacher and a pilot. He will use the curriculum at his high school in New York City this year. He sees the curriculum as a tool to help motivate his students.
If we pick the interest very early on, then we can inspire them towards a goal.
Amanda Harden is a teacher in Ada, Oklahoma. She is just learning about all the possibilities aviation brings to her students.
I think aviation is something that hasn't been explored a lot in the public school systems. We have courses like physics, which obviously would hit on all of the dynamics of that. However, applying it as a career isn't thought of a lot. So this elective course would offer a lot of opportunities.
Teachers who don't have experience with aviation received hands-on learning with airplanes, and some even took their first flight. Much of the learning in the curriculum is hands-on, allowing students to learn in a tactile way. The curriculum is starting to get attention from the aviation industry, with companies like American Airlines supporting the project. American gave a $100,000 grant to help develop the curriculum. It's part of their efforts to help with the pilot shortage.
There are not enough people learning how to fly right now. and we need to get ahead of that. And that's why we choose to partner with AOPA and to partner with these teachers and these counselors and to inform them and educate them about the professional pilot career path.
And that is the goal of the high school initiative, to engage students and teach them about all the incredible opportunities in aviation. Julie Walker, AOPA Live.
The curriculum is free for schools to use. The program is funded by people like you through generous donations to the AOPA Foundation. Find out how you can help at the AOPA Foundation websites. So I was downstairs in the academy this week and saw some of the teachers in action. They were very enthusiastic and really excited to learn, and we're getting some great coverage. We had PBS NewsHour out here today reporting on what's happening here, so we'll see what comes out of that.
Oh, that's great. Maybe some national coverage.
Hope so.
You Can Fly also has a variety of scholarships to help young people learn to fly. Now Mid-Continent Instruments and Avionics of Wichita has established a new scholarship for aspiring avionics technicians. That scholarship honors Pat Napolitano, who worked as an A&P mechanic and staggerwing pilot for the company before his untimely death a few weeks ago. The $3,000 scholarship will be administered by the Aircraft Electronics Association, and more information is on their website. The Air Race Classic has concluded. The all-women flight team flew a course from Sweetwater, Texas to Freiburg, Maine. Race organizers had to scrap 6 of the 9 course legs because of weather. A Tennessee team flying a 172 was declared the winner. Mariah Ferber and Paige Kessler did the best job of beating their handicap speed on each leg.
Meanwhile, in the Red Bull Air Race Series, AOPA Ambassador Michael Goulian has moved into 2nd place. He finished 4th in the race in Budapest last Sunday. The point ranking system from all the previous races now puts him behind only Matt Hall of Australia. The next 2 races are in Russia and Austria, then on to the Brickyard in Indianapolis in October. You want to see it? There's a special AOPA event scheduled for the Indy race. For more information, go online. And finally this week, we pilots always joke about flying somewhere in search of the $100 hamburger.
Well, now there's a pilot and business owner who wants you to set your sights on a new goal. The $100 six-pack. AOPA ePilot Associate Editor Dave Toulis explains.
And I get to watch airplanes while we get to make beer.
Life couldn't get much better for Ryan Krill. 2 of his passions are side by side, flying and craft beer. 7 years ago, he expanded his home brewing hobby into a small brewery, and he discovered the best place to locate it was in Cape May, New Jersey, by the airport.
And I always really just liked the airport because there was so much space to expand and there's no neighbors to upset.
Today, Cape May Brewing is one of the largest breweries in the state, and award-winning too.
Just recently we won a very flattering award. Beer Connoisseur magazine, which is one of the premier beer judging periodicals, named one of our sour beers Best Beer of the Year. So top sale as Beer of the Year, which is a huge honor and totally floored.
Quality and airport proximity are a huge draw for pilots.
And an unexpected outcome, or an unexpected consequence of this brewery is the invention of the $100 six-pack. So what we found is we are a destination for pilots to come, go fly down, land at Whiskey Whiskey Delta, walk over from the ramp to the tasting room, buy a six-pack or a growler, fly home, and then enjoy it back at their home or back at their own hangar when they land.
Some 20 beers to choose from, including the latest.
My favorite beer is normally the beer that's in my hand, but we just released one called Always Ready, which is a beer we did in conjunction with the U.S. Coast Guard. So Always Ready is the English version of the motto Semper Paratus. So Cape May is has a Coast Guard base that trains all cadets. So anybody in the Coast Guard comes through Cape May. So we partner with them on that beer, and it's really beautiful beer, very hoppy and bright and low alcohol. It's really nice.
And Cape May is a nice place to visit too. Beaches, restaurants, and the Naval Air Station Wildwood Museum. I think there might be some more $100 six-packs in my future. David Toulis, AOPA Live.
Cape May is definitely one of my favorite places to go to, and I've been to that brewery. I'll have to remind the pilot owner that I'm a proud AOPA member myself.
Right, and maybe you get a discount, something like that. That'll do it for this week. Have a safe and sane 4th of July holiday.
And if you fly during the fireworks displays, remember that some of the public venues will have TFRs, and fireworks shells can shoot as high as 1,200 feet AGL. And it might be hard to see other aircraft near a fireworks display.
So hey, maybe watching from the ground might be a better idea, just saying. Hey, you have a comment about the show? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to aopalive@aopa.org. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next Thursday for another edition of AOPA Live This Week.
Purchasing your own aircraft is an exciting experience. AOPA Finance simplifies the process, saving you money with lower interest rates and hassle-free loans, so you get into your new aircraft sooner. AOPA Finance, the right approach to buying an aircraft.